The tragic story of Deborah Brandao and Danilo Cavalcante is a powerful reminder of the dangers of domestic violence. Deborah, a loving mother, had dreams for her family that were shattered by a brutal act of violence. Her life was cut short, leaving her children without a mother and a community in shock. This case grabbed public attention, sparking vital conversations about the need for support for victims and the importance of safety at home. As we explore the events leading to Deborah's tragic murder, the intense manhunt for Cavalcante, and the relentless pursuit of justice by law enforcement, we uncover not just a crime, but a community's determination to seek justice. Join us as we delve into a story of heartbreak and resilience, emphasizing the importance of standing against violence and protecting those in need. This case serves as a call to action, reminding us all of the need for awareness and change in our society. Background of Danilo Souza Cavalcante and Deborah Brandao. Danilo Souza Cavalcante was born in Brazil and later moved to the United States, seeking a fresh start and better opportunities. However, his life soon took a troubling turn as he became entangled in various criminal activities. Before committing the tragic murder of Deborah Brandao, his former girlfriend, Cavalcante had a history marked by violence and tumultuous relationships. In 2017, he was arrested for Brandao's murder, an incident that shocked the community and highlighted the grave issue of domestic violence. Deborah Brandao was a devoted mother whose life was tragically cut short by her partner's actions. Her murder not only devastated her family, but also raised alarms in the community about the dangers of abusive relationships. The circumstances surrounding her death revealed the urgent need for awareness and support for victims of domestic violence. Together, the backgrounds of Cavalcante and Brandao provide a deeper understanding of the severe impact of such crimes on individuals and communities, emphasizing the need for vigilance and intervention in similar situations. The murder of Deborah Brandao. The tragic murder of Deborah Brandao in 2017 was a shocking event that garnered widespread public attention. Brandao was brutally attacked by her partner, Danilo Souza Cavalcante, in front of her young children, a horrifying act that left many in disbelief. This incident was not an isolated event, but rather the culmination of a turbulent relationship filled with frequent arguments and accusations of jealousy. Cavalcante and Brandao's relationship had been marked by conflict, with both parties often embroiled in disputes that highlighted deep-seated issues. Friends and family later described their relationship as volatile, suggesting that the signs of danger were apparent. Unfortunately, the warning signs went unheeded, leading to the tragic outcome. On the fateful day of the murder, a heated argument broke out between the couple. What began as a verbal conflict escalated quickly into violence. As Cavalcante's rage boiled over, reports indicate that in a fit of anger, he stabbed Brandao multiple times, inflicting fatal wounds. The sheer brutality of the attack shocked those who heard about it, as it underscored how domestic disputes can escalate dangerously and lead to devastating consequences. Brandao's death was not just a personal tragedy. It resonated deeply within her community. She was a devoted mother who loved her children, and her sudden absence left a void that would never be filled. The trauma of witnessing such violence had a lasting impact on her children, who were left to grapple with the horrifying memories of that day. The psychological scars they bear serve as a haunting reminder of how domestic violence can ripple through families, affecting not just the direct victims but also innocent bystanders. This case brought to light the urgent need for increased awareness surrounding domestic violence. Many people are unaware of the warning signs that often precede such tragic events. It is crucial for communities to recognize the importance of supporting victims and understanding that domestic violence can happen to anyone, regardless of background or circumstance. Education about these issues is vital for prevention, allowing communities to create support systems for those in abusive situations. The tragic story of Deborah Brandao serves as a stark reminder of the potential dangers inherent in abusive relationships. It emphasizes the necessity of open conversations about domestic violence, urging individuals to speak out when they notice troubling signs. Community members and organizations must work together to ensure that victims have access to resources and support, whether through shelters, counseling, or legal aid. In the aftermath of Brandao's murder, her family and friends have continued to advocate for justice and raise awareness about domestic violence. They hope that by sharing her story, they can help prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future. Brandao's case is not just a tale of loss. It is a call to action for everyone to recognize the signs of domestic abuse and take a stand against it. Overall, the brutal murder of Deborah Brandao highlights a critical societal issue that requires immediate attention and action. By fostering a culture of awareness and support, we can work towards preventing such tragedies and ensuring that no family has to endure the pain of losing a loved one to violence. The investigation? After Deborah Brandao's tragic murder, local authorities quickly launched a thorough investigation to gather evidence and build a strong case against Danilo Souza Cavalcante. Understanding the seriousness of the crime, law enforcement began their work without delay. The police focused on interviewing witnesses who had seen or heard anything related to the incident. These testimonies were crucial in piecing together the events leading up to the fatal attack. In addition to speaking with witnesses, investigators collected forensic evidence from the crime scene. They gathered items that might have been left behind during the struggle, such as fingerprints or any potential weapons. Forensic experts meticulously examined the scene to find clues that could help establish what had happened. This process involved careful documentation and analysis to ensure that every piece of evidence was accounted for and preserved. Another important part of the investigation was the review of surveillance footage from nearby cameras. The area around Brandao's home was likely monitored, and police worked to access this footage to gain a better understanding of the timeline of events. This video evidence could provide insight into Cavalcante's actions before and after the murder, adding more depth to the case against him. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that the relationship between Cavalcante and Brandao was fraught with danger. Police discovered a disturbing pattern of abuse that painted a troubling picture of their life together. Witnesses described instances of jealousy and violence, indicating that Brandao had been living in a precarious situation. These details further emphasized the tragic nature of her death and the urgent need for awareness around domestic violence. With mounting evidence, authorities were able to charge Cavalcante with murder. This decision was not taken lightly. It came after careful consideration of all the gathered facts and testimonies. The community reacted with shock and anger at the news of Brandao's murder, sparking conversations about domestic violence and the need for stronger protective measures for victims. Many community members felt that more should be done to prevent such tragedies, advocating for better resources and support systems for those in abusive relationships. The swift actions of law enforcement, in this case, demonstrated their commitment to seeking justice for Deborah Brandao. They worked diligently, knowing that the outcome would affect not only Brandao's family, but also the community at large. Their determination to gather evidence and pursue charges against Cavalcante showed a proactive approach to handling domestic violence cases, which are often complicated and sensitive. In the aftermath of the investigation, community discussions focused on how to support victims of domestic violence better. Many organizations began to raise awareness about the signs of abuse, encouraging individuals to speak out if they or someone they knew was in danger. Local advocacy groups organized events to educate the public on resources available for victims, such as hotlines, shelters, and counseling services. These efforts aim to empower individuals to seek help and provide them with the knowledge they needed to protect themselves. Ultimately, the investigation into Deborah Brandao's murder not only sought to bring justice for her tragic loss, but also served as a catalyst for change in the community. It highlighted the need for open conversations about domestic violence and the importance of creating a supportive environment for victims. Through these collective efforts, the hope is that no one will have to endure the pain and suffering that Brandao experienced in her final days. Court trial and decision. Cavalcante's trial began a few years after the murder of Deborah Brandao and quickly drew significant media attention. The case captivated the public, as many were eager to learn more about the details surrounding the crime. As the courtroom filled with onlookers, emotions ran high. The prosecution prepared to present a strong case, while Cavalcante's defense team sought to challenge the evidence and argue for his innocence. During the trial, prosecutors showcased compelling evidence that built a clear narrative of the crime. They presented eyewitness testimonies from individuals who had seen or heard the violent confrontation between Cavalcante and Brandao. These witnesses recounted the events leading up to the murder, describing the couple's tumultuous relationship and the arguments that often erupted between them. Their accounts painted a vivid picture of a toxic environment that ultimately resulted in tragedy. In addition to witness testimonies, the prosecution introduced forensic findings that were crucial to the case. These included evidence from the crime scene, such as blood samples and potential weaponry. Forensic experts analyzed the evidence to establish a timeline and demonstrate the violent nature of the attack. The combination of eyewitness accounts and forensic data created a robust case against Cavalcante, showing the jury the brutal reality of what transpired on that fateful day. Despite the overwhelming evidence presented by the prosecution, Cavalcante maintained his innocence throughout the trial. He claimed that the incident was an accident, insisting that he did not intend to kill Brandao. His defense team worked hard to support this claim, attempting to cast doubt on the evidence and portray Cavalcante as someone who acted in the heat of the moment. They argued that the murder was not premeditated and urged the jury to consider the possibility that it was a tragic accident rather than a deliberate act of violence. However, the jury was not convinced by Cavalcante's defense. After careful deliberation, they found him guilty of first-degree murder. The verdict reflected their belief in the severity of his actions and the tragic outcome of Brandao's life. This decision was met with relief by many in the community, who had been following the case closely and hoped for justice for Brandao and her family. The conviction led to a life sentence without the possibility of parole, underscoring the seriousness of the crime and the impact it had on the victims left behind. The sentence served as a reminder that acts of domestic violence have severe consequences, and that society must hold perpetrators accountable for their actions. This outcome also highlighted the importance of justice for victims of violence, ensuring that their stories are heard and acknowledged in the courtroom. The trial not only focused on the details of the murder, but also opened up broader discussions about domestic violence. It brought attention to the urgent need for awareness and support systems for victims, emphasizing that no one should have to endure such fear and pain in their own homes. The community rallied together to advocate for change, hoping to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Ultimately, Cavalcante's trial was a crucial step in seeking justice for Deborah Brandao and underscored the importance of addressing domestic violence in society. By holding offenders accountable, the justice system sends a message that violence will not be tolerated and that victims deserve protection and support. Escape from Chester County Prison. Cavalcante's trial began a few years after the murder of Deborah Brandao and quickly drew significant media attention. The case captivated the public, with many eager to learn more about the details surrounding the crime. As the courtroom filled with onlookers, emotions ran high, creating a tense atmosphere. The prosecution prepared to present a strong case, while Cavalcante's defense team worked hard to challenge the evidence and argue for his innocence. During the trial, prosecutors showcased compelling evidence that painted a clear narrative of the crime. They presented eyewitness testimonies from individuals who had seen or heard the violent confrontation between Cavalcante and Brandao. These witnesses recounted the events leading up to the murder, describing the couple's tumultuous relationship filled with frequent arguments and jealousy. Their accounts painted a vivid picture of a toxic environment that ultimately led to a tragic outcome. In addition to witness testimonies, the prosecution introduced crucial forensic findings that further solidified their case. This included evidence from the crime scene, such as blood samples and potential weapons used in the attack. Forensic experts analyzed the evidence to establish a timeline of events and demonstrate the violent nature of the confrontation. The combination of eyewitness accounts and forensic data created a robust case against Cavalcante, showing the jury the brutal reality of what happened on that fateful day. Despite the overwhelming evidence presented by the prosecution, Cavalcante maintained his innocence throughout the trial. He claimed that the incident was an accident and insisted that he did not intend to kill Brandao. His defense team worked tirelessly to support this claim, attempting to cast doubt on the evidence and portray Cavalcante as someone who acted impulsively in a heated moment. They argued that the murder was not premeditated and urged the jury to consider the possibility that it was a tragic accident rather than a deliberate act of violence. However, after careful deliberation, the jury was not convinced by Cavalcante's defense. They found him guilty of first-degree murder, reflecting their belief in the severity of his actions and the tragic outcome of Brandao's life. This verdict was met with relief by many in the community who had been closely following the case and hoped for justice for Brandao and her grieving family. The conviction led to a life sentence without the possibility of parole, underscoring the seriousness of the crime and its impact on the victims left behind. The sentence served as a reminder that acts of domestic violence carry severe consequences and that society must hold perpetrators accountable for their actions. This outcome also highlighted the importance of justice for victims of violence, ensuring that their stories are heard and acknowledged in the courtroom. Cavalcante's trial opened up broader discussions about domestic violence. It emphasized the urgent need for awareness and support systems for victims, reinforcing that no one should have to endure fear and pain in their own homes. The community rallied together to advocate for change, hoping to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Ultimately, the trial marked a crucial step in seeking justice for Deborah Brandao and underscored the importance of addressing domestic violence in society. By holding offenders accountable, the justice system sends a clear message: violence will not be tolerated, and victims deserve protection and support. The search. After Danilo Souza Cavalcante escaped from custody, law enforcement acted swiftly to launch a large-scale search operation that involved local, state, and federal teams. The search area expanded across Pennsylvania, focusing on areas where Cavalcante might have sought refuge. Authorities mobilized a range of resources, including helicopters, K-9 units, and ground teams to aid in locating him. The use of helicopters allowed search teams to cover vast distances quickly, scanning forests, fields, and urban areas from the air. K-9 units, with their keen sense of smell, played a crucial role in tracking Cavalcante's movements, while ground teams combed through potential hiding spots on foot. As the search progressed, law enforcement encouraged the community to remain vigilant and report any sightings of Cavalcante. Flyers with his photo and description were distributed throughout neighborhoods, and local news outlets broadcast updates on the manhunt. The call for public assistance created a sense of urgency, as residents understood the potential danger posed by an escaped convict. As news of his escape spread, anxiety swept through the community. People began to worry about their safety, leading to heightened alertness in daily activities. Local businesses responded to this fear by increasing security measures. Many shops implemented additional surveillance systems and reinforced their entry points. Some businesses even hired extra staff to ensure a visible security presence. Schools, too, took precautionary steps by enhancing their safety protocols. Administrators communicated with parents about the situation, assuring them that measures were in place to protect students. Many schools held drills to prepare for emergencies, reinforcing the importance of safety among students and staff. Residents remained on edge, frequently discussing the situation with neighbors and friends. Social media became a platform for sharing updates, tips, and concerns about Cavalcante's whereabouts. The community united in its effort to stay informed, with many people pledging to watch for any unusual activity. Local gatherings often featured conversations about the manhunt, as everyone felt the weight of the situation. Fear and uncertainty lingered, affecting the daily lives of those living in the area. The search for Cavalcante received significant media attention, capturing the public's interest across the nation. News outlets provided continuous coverage, reporting on each development in the manhunt. This constant stream of information kept the public engaged and aware of the situation, fueling discussions about safety and security. As the media spotlight shone on the operation, The collaboration among various law enforcement agencies was highlighted. Their teamwork underscored a collective commitment to capturing this dangerous fugitive and restoring safety to the community. As days turned into weeks, the determination of law enforcement only grew stronger. Their tireless efforts aimed to reassure the community that they were doing everything possible to locate Cavalcante. The search became a rallying point for residents, as many felt a sense of responsibility to contribute to the effort. With each passing day, the hope for a safe resolution remained, reflecting the resilience and unity of the community in the face of adversity. The operation served as a reminder of the importance of cooperation between law enforcement and the public, especially during challenging times when safety is at stake. Cavalcante is caught. On September 13, 2023, after nearly 2 weeks of evading capture, Danilo Souza Cavalcante was finally apprehended in a wooded area near Longwood Gardens. His capture came after law enforcement received numerous tips from the public, showcasing the critical role that community involvement played in the search. As news spread about his location, law enforcement quickly mobilized to a swift and safe operation. The cooperation between local police, state troopers, and federal agents demonstrated the effectiveness of teamwork in addressing such serious situations. Each agency brought unique resources and expertise, which were vital in successfully locating and apprehending the fugitive. The operation itself was well coordinated and planned meticulously. Officers had been working around the clock, following leads and conducting searches in various locations. When tips started coming in, they focused their efforts on areas where Cavalcante might be hiding. As they approached Longwood Gardens, the atmosphere was tense, yet hopeful, as everyone understood the significance of this moment. The officers involved knew that capturing him would not only ensure public safety, but also provide much-needed closure to a community that had been living in fear since his escape. When Cavalcante was finally taken into custody, there was an overwhelming sense of relief that washed over the community. Residents had been anxious and on high alert since the news of his escape broke, and many had modified their daily routines to stay safe. Parents worried about their children's safety, while local businesses implemented extra security measures to protect employees and customers alike. The anxiety and uncertainty that had gripped the area began to dissipate as residents learned that the threat had been neutralized. Cavalcante's arrest not only marked the end of a stressful period for the community, but also provided a sense of justice for those affected by his crimes. The residents had witnessed the impact of his actions, which had left them feeling vulnerable in their own neighborhoods. Knowing he was back in custody allowed them to breathe a sigh of relief and begin to feel safe again. This event underscored the importance of law enforcement in maintaining order and safety within communities. However, the discussions that followed Cavalcante's recapture centered around the need for improved security measures within the prison system. His escape had raised serious questions about how he was able to break free and what could be done to prevent similar incidents in the future. Many community members expressed their concerns and hopes that the authorities would take their experiences seriously. They wanted assurances that the safety of the public would remain a top priority. In response, law enforcement agencies and prison officials began to evaluate their protocols and procedures. They sought to implement changes that would better secure facilities and prevent escapes. This collaborative approach highlighted the ongoing commitment of both law enforcement and the community to work together in creating a safer environment. Ultimately, Cavalcante's recapture was not just about bringing one fugitive to justice. It was a crucial moment for reflection and progress in the fight against crime. The community emerged stronger, united in their dedication to ensuring safety for all its members. Implications and reactions. Cavalcante's case had significant implications for discussions about domestic violence and prison security. The brutality of Deborah Brandao's murder was a chilling reminder of the dangers victims face daily. It highlighted the harsh reality that many individuals live in fear within their own homes, and the urgent need for protective measures became painfully clear. The circumstances surrounding Brandao's death sparked important conversations about the necessity of supporting victims and providing them with the resources they need to escape abusive situations. Many advocates called for better training for law enforcement and social services to recognize signs of domestic abuse and respond appropriately. These discussions also emphasized the need for safe shelters and support systems for victims. Community organizations rallied together, focusing on raising awareness about domestic violence and ensuring that victims have access to the help they need. The tragedy of Brandao's murder ignited a movement aimed at educating the public about the signs of domestic abuse, making it clear that everyone has a role to play in protecting vulnerable individuals. Workshops, seminars, and outreach programs began to emerge, emphasizing the importance of recognizing and addressing domestic violence before it escalates to tragic outcomes. Additionally, Cavalcante's escape raised significant alarms about the vulnerabilities within prison systems. His ability to evade capture for nearly 2 weeks led to widespread concern about security protocols in correctional facilities. People began to question how he could escape in the first place and what measures were in place to prevent such incidents. The outcry prompted calls for comprehensive reforms aimed at improving prison security and ensuring that dangerous individuals remain behind bars. Prison officials and lawmakers faced pressure to address these vulnerabilities. This included re-evaluating staffing levels, surveillance systems, and emergency response protocols within correctional facilities. Many advocated for the implementation of modern technology to monitor prisoners more effectively and ensure that escape attempts are detected and thwarted quickly. The incident underscored the need for systemic changes to enhance the safety of both the public and those incarcerated. The public reaction to Cavalcante's recapture was a mix of relief and ongoing concern for community safety. While many felt a sense of closure knowing that he was back in custody, they remained aware that the issues of domestic violence and prison security were far from resolved. The conversations sparked by this case served as a reminder that communities must remain vigilant and proactive in addressing these complex issues. Ultimately, Cavalcante's case became more than just a tragic story. It underscored the interconnectedness of crime, justice, and public safety. The discussions it ignited continue to resonate, urging individuals and organizations to work together to create a safer environment for everyone. By shining a light on these critical topics, the hope is to foster meaningful change that protects victims, holds perpetrators accountable, and ensures that justice prevails in the face of violence. The community's response demonstrated a collective commitment to not only addressing the aftermath of crime, but also preventing future tragedies through awareness, education, and reform. Thank you for joining us as we examine the tragic case of Deborah Brandao and Danilo Cavalcante. This heart-wrenching story underscores the critical importance of recognizing the signs of domestic violence and the need for stronger protections for victims. We encourage you to share your thoughts and insights in the comments below. If this discussion resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories that matter. Your support is essential in helping raise awareness about these vital issues. Until next time, stay safe and aware.